going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core picks for this week's Wyndham Championship. I'm excited to hop into this. My top 6 GPP plays priced $8,000 and above on Draftkings to give you an idea of who I'm expecting to try and get some leverage to and to go out there and play in maybe 25, maybe even 30% plus of my lineups. These players either model particularly well this week or have a particularly solid course fit, and I'm looking to get behind to sometimes both. Sometimes they check both of those boxes, and I expect them to be players with a lot of upside in this sort of field. And last week, it wasn't our greatest week, but really didn't get hurt across the board. The only core pick that missed the cut ended up being a Davis Riley, and if it weren't for a quad bogey on a par 5, the only water hazard on property bit him twice on the same hole, he would have been well within the cut line. So sometimes that's just golf for you. But outside of that, guys like a Cam Young, obviously Patrick Cantlay, ended up finishing in the top 5. Scott Stallings was another great pick there at $7,700. So across the board, can't really complain about our results. Just wish I had a little bit more Tony Finau exposure. But, obviously hindsight is 2020. The guy was on an absolute heater. Was certainly possible that he rode that into another week. But here, not going to be a 3-week stretch for him. Obviously taking a week off before the FedEx Cup playoffs, probably wise for somebody who needs to gear up for a really strong 3-event stretch here. So while the field isn't quite the strongest this week at the Wyndham Championship, there's just a ton on the line, right? Players' careers, players' tour cards are going to be on the line. And anytime the players have a little bit of extra motivation going on, and it's not like us viewers need any extra motivation, we've got our outright bets, our DFS lineups to go out there and sweat. It makes for a fun weekend. So should be high energy, a lot of nervousness, a lot of excitement there in the air, and I'm looking forward to it. So let's go ahead, stop the diddy-dallying, stop this intro BS, because I know what you guys are here. Alrighty, we've got our projections and modeling on the screen, and the first core pick for this week we're going to start with is going to be Sungjae Im at $10,500. Now, going into the 3M Open, we were hoping that we'd see even a semblance of a bounce back with the putter form, and that is exactly what we got. If you remember at the Open Championship, lost over 10 strokes putting through 4 rounds, which was by far his worst performance ever. So we did expect to see a little bit of positive regression, just maybe not as much as we saw there at the 3M, right? Obviously, second place finish was very solid for our DFS lineups. We had him as a sleeper pick there, but going into this week, I expect him to ride that form. The ball striking has been there for quite a while now. It's really just been the putter that's escaping him, missing these 5 to 6 footers time and time again, a range that in the past he had been also reliable in, just consistently a gainer on the tour from that 5 to 10 and even that 10 to 15 foot range, which is really where you do a lot of your scoring, particularly if you're a top-notch ball striker like a Sungjae Im who just sets up opportunity after opportunity. It's a really good sign to see him finally flip that putter. And if he can even just be a neutral with that category, you're looking at somebody with top 25 floor, if not something like top 10 to top 5, or perhaps even winning upside if he brings that putter to the table. So on Bermuda grass for his career, it has historically been his best surface. You can see he's gaining 0.34 shots per round in that surface. Obviously, on other surfaces, he's a slight marginal gainer, but on Bermuda grass, he has been well above tour average when it comes to the flat stick. And for him, at least of late, right, that's been the one bugaboo. What's really been holding him back, if anything, for the last 3 to 4 starts. And if we're going to get him at a higher baseline on this surface, go out there, continue to ball strike it like an absolute just phenom for the last 2 to 3 months. I have no worries about his game. So if we take a look at the shots gained metrics, you'll get an idea for what I'm talking about. From tee to green, gaining 3/4 of a stroke per round off the tee. With the approach play, gaining 1/3 of a stroke per round. Same thing around the green. And with the putter, 0.42 shots per round lost, right? Which is, seems a little bit outrageous on the surface, but that also includes a tournament where he lost 10 strokes to the field. So obviously a huge outlier there, going to vastly skew the data that we're looking at, particularly when it's over just the last 24 rounds, right? 10 shots gained is massive in that sort of sample size. So, over the next few months, as those 10 shots gained end up getting moved out of the rotunda, his stats will continue to improve. But, as is, at least on paper, on a Bermuda grass type of track, is somebody that I expect to have a lot of upside here and perhaps could even end up winning this event. But the real beauty of playing somebody in DFS, or at least in this type of format, format is even at $10,000, he doesn't necessarily have to win this event to, be in the optimal lineup. Just look at a lot of the GPP optimals over the last 4 to 5 years. Almost all of them have had Webb Simpson. And I mean, if we look at his course history, it makes a lot of sense, right? If we go to the top of the board here, right, 7th, 3rd, 2nd, 3rd, all these years when he's finished in 3rd, 2nd, and 3rd, he's been in the optimal lineup, or at least the winning lineup when it comes to these large field GPPs. It's because you don't need to be perfect to take them down, right? Unless somebody up here that's super chalky, that's like 20 to 30% owned, ends up winning the golf tournament, something up there in the top 5 is more than enough. And for Sungjae Im to win this tournament, he probably does have to gain a few strokes with the flat stick. But if he's even a neutral or just gains 1, maybe 1.5 strokes to the field over 4 rounds, which, given his baseline of 0.3 shots per round on Bermuda grass is very reasonable to expect from a Sungjae Im, that's probably a top 5 finish. And in this type of format, particularly if you're in a smaller field GPP, like a single entry, a 2 to 3 max, that sort of event, gives him just makes him a better play, gives him a little bit more upside in those sort of formats. So I love him there at $10,500. I think you're paying the price, obviously coming off of the form there at the 3M Open, but I think it's well warranted as somebody who's also had a lot of success at comp courses I'm looking at. So if we take a look at some of the results this year at I believe RBC Heritage played well, ended up playing pretty well. What was it? Didn't play at the Wells Fargo Championship. I believe it was just the RBC Heritage for Sungjae Im, but in either circumstance, you like to see that rather than not. Didn't play at the Wells Fargo Championship. That's the other major comp course I'm looking at. Same thing with the RSM Classic. I believe also skipped out on that event. So for Sungjae Im, still just, great metrics across the board. Coming in with the type of form I'm looking for, right? Obviously coming in off a 2nd place finish. That Open Championship performance where he finished in 81st, I'm not looking into too much. And Scottish Open, more of a throwaway than anything. That was a links style golf, and anyone could miss the cut at the US Open. So maybe I'm looking past those missed cuts a little bit, more than most, just because the shots gained metrics have been there. And, even though he has 2 missed cuts on the record, right, still gaining a ton off the tee, still gaining a ton on approach and around the green. Doesn't worry me all that much, right? In the larger scheme of things, he's been really striping the ball for quite some time, and I'd expect that to continue into the future. Next up, we've got Billy Horschel at $10,300. And anytime you give me Billy Ho on a short positional track, and particularly one that is Bermuda grass, that's really the icing on the cake there, I'm going to be taking him in bunches. He's somebody who's a specialist. He's a very precise player. He's not relatively powerful. And I mean, he's not short off the tee. He's more like right around 305 yards, 310 yards off the tee, which isn't a diss to anybody, let alone somebody on tour. The issue I have with Billy Ho at most golf courses is the long iron play. He's not the most explosive player. His birdie or better percentage can vary from time to time. He's not the most aggressive player. He plays to the middle of the green more often than not. But at the Wyndham Championship, a course where you have to be strategic, first off the tee that plays directly into his skill set, right? Where he tends to get in trouble is when he has to push it out there off the tee. Feels like he has to be more powerful. When you give him just an iron off the tee, tell him to, go out there and hit his spot, he's going to be particularly skilled at doing so because his iron play is among the best on the PGA Tour. And if we take a look at his course history here, you'll see that familiarity. I mean, first off, 2nd place in 2020, 6th place in 2019, 11th in 2018, even made the cut in 2017 when he had his worst ever performance. Also worth noting that Sungjae, right, 6th, 9th, 24th place finish. It makes sense that these positional, more accurate type of players like a Sungjae Im and Billy Horschel have had that sustained success at this golf course. Whereas, guys that are a little bit more of bomber types, like even a Corey Connors, for example, right? That's a ball striking first type of player who's also relatively long. Now, he's also precise, right? But he's maybe not the best short game or putter as some of the other guys here on tour, right? Missed cut, 45th place finish. I mean, Will Zalatoris, right, 29th last year. That's okay for Willie Z, but missed the cut in 2018 when he played this as an amateur. So, I'm a little bit more bullish on the guys that are quote-unquote plotters here on the PGA Tour, and that's, despite Sungjae and Billy Horschel still being well above average in terms of their driving distance. It's just that they're particularly skilled with their wedges. They're short irons. Also, both really solid putters on Bermuda grass. Those type of players I prefer to somebody like Willie Z, right? That's a little bit more explosive with the ball striking stats. I'm looking for a little bit more of a well-rounded game, and particularly with the putter because, at a golf course where 78% of greens are going to be hit, and that's the case here with Sedgefield Country Club, you're definitely going to need to make a lot more putts than your peers because most people on almost every single hole are going to have that putt for birdie. And if you're somebody that first off can't cash in enough and you're only going to shoot something like 2 to 3 under par around, that's not going to be enough. But even more than that, when you have to go out there and, you might be 3-putting from time to time, giving back strokes, I mean, that is just the cardinal sin. You absolutely cannot do that around the Wyndham Championship. So that's why I'm trying to get to these consistent, more plotter type players that tend to stay away from that type of play. Next up, we've got ourselves Tyrrell Hatton, and this is the pick that could get me in trouble this week because I have a very strange gut feeling about Tyrrell Hatton this week. I've bet him outright. It's one of the larger outrights I've placed for quite some time, and it seems like everybody wants to throw this guy to the curb. A lot of people will probably just immediately write him off this week, assume that he has no chance to win, but if there's courses that I like playing Hatton at, and I think this is why the gut hunch really came around to begin with, it's courses where off the tee kind of doesn't matter. And if you've seen my course breakdown, you'll notice that there's a lot of layup shots you'll have to hit off the tee here, particularly if you go to the hole-by-hole breakdown section. I show where a lot of those landing spots will be, and for Tyrrell Hatton, where he gets into trouble is with the driving accuracy. He is god awful at hitting fairways, and usually it's because he's long off the tee. He's a bomber, actually. He hits at about 310-yard carry, and most people don't give him credit for that. He is, by definition, a bomber out there on tour. He's in the top 10, 15th percentile on tour when it comes to driving distance. The issue is he cannot do a thing with his driving accuracy. In fact, sometimes he loses to the PGA Tour, even with his driving shots getting off the tee, despite being one of the longer players in the field. And that's just how inaccurate this guy can be. So for Tyrrell Hatton at a golf course where you don't have to worry about that aspect, first off, I absolutely love for him. But more than anything, this guy is amazing with the wedges. One of the best players with the short irons on the PGA Tour. Pretty much whatever sample size you look at, whether it's this year, you can look at the 2020 stats, you can look at the last 50 measured rounds, last 100 measured rounds, whatever the case may be, he's great with the short irons, the wedges. Now, long irons, some of the longer shots, even like the 175 to 200 yard category, are where he's among the worst on the PGA Tour. So at courses where you get to dial into some of those, shorter proximity buckets are really the courses that I try to target him at. And really it fits from the eye test too. If you've seen Tyrrell Hatton play golf, you'll know that this guy is an absolute heat-seeking pin missile from the wedge range. I mean, he's, if you give him a shot from like 100 yards, 120 yards, he's going to come close to making it from that range. He's like that Jordan Spieth type of player where you're pretty much just banking on a tap-in birdie, essentially, when you get him in that sort of range. So I love Tyrrell Hatton at these short golf courses, especially a course that takes the driver out of his hands. And I mean, the recent form hasn't been nearly as bad as people give him credit for. First off, 11th at the Open Championship. Last time I heard a major championship, top 15 finish was pretty solid. 24th at the Scottish Open, another, relatively short golf course. It has a few relatively long holes, but, it plays like a wedge fest out there with Scotland. U.S. Open 14th place finish. Actually, sorry, that's Adam Scott there. Went one low. 56th place finish. Still made the cut there. It's still pretty solid, for Tyrrell Hatton. The form is a lot better than people want to give him credit for. And I know it's kind of been going under the radar. He hasn't cracked an optimal lineup, that sort of thing. But you're talking about somebody from a long-term perspective that, especially for some of his international sort of stats, that's a winner first and foremost. But in terms of pedigree, when he brings it to the table, when he's firing on all cylinders, is out there performing at peak performance, he's almost unbeatable, particularly at a track like this. And we've seen that internationally. Now, on the PGA Tour, he's yet to really break through all that often, right? Has the win at the API, has contended from time to time, but I think sooner rather than later, we're going to see that sort of a breakout performance. Now, the course history is non-existent, right? Has not played here in the last 5 years, so it's a little bit speculative on whether this course fit is going to stick, but I think with the recent form going under the radar, I think is a better way to put it, there over the last 4 to 5 events, with the fact that he hasn't played here before, I don't think he's going to be popular at all. In fact, I think he might be something in that 7 to 10% range when it comes to his ownership. And if that's going to be the case, like I said, I had the gut feeling I've already bet him outright. I'm going to have a clown percentage amount of Tyrrell Hatton this week. He's going to be my most leveraged play. It's probably not even going to be close. And it's going to make or break my week, but I could very well see him winning this event. And if he does, and I get him at like 7% ownership, and I play like 35% come Wednesday, I'm going to be running to the bank, probably winning a GPP this week. So it's going to be a huge leverage spot, at least, Monday morning, right? Taking a look at this early in the week, then I'm probably getting to. Next up, we've got Varner III, another player who seems to succeed at the shorter tracks, and it's for the same reason as Tyrrell Hatton. you want to take the driver out of HV3's hands because from fairway in, he really does everything we're looking for. So first and foremost, great on Bermuda grass. And that's something I meant to mention about Hatton too. You can see he's gaining 0.41 shots per round there on Bermuda grass. HV3 gaining 0.12, which might not seem all that severe, but for his career, he's not always the most consistent putter. And of late, HV3 has been playing some solid golf. So if we take a look at the shot gain metrics, you'll get an idea for exactly why I'm getting to him. So first and foremost, gaining 0.8 shots per round with the approach play. Off the tee, a marginal gainer, 0.1 shots per round. So that's at least a plus there, right? Nothing we want to harp on, though. Around the green has been gaining, and with the putter, a slight loser. And really, that's what you're used to seeing from HV3. Like I mentioned, not the most consistent putter. In fact, you could probably say that he's a poor putter. I think that's a fair thing to say there. But on Bermuda grass, for his career is a positive with that baseline. So anytime we get somebody coming in with a little bit lackluster form, but for a long-term perspective is better on the surface that they're going to play that week, I always expect positive regression. That is just a characteristic of a statistic, something that, why we look at these regression stats. That's why we look at somebody, on a specific surface to see whether, they're more likely to regress to their mean or perhaps continue to hit the ball poorly if it's a surface that they don't like so much. It's a legitimate factor. We've heard from players before that when you get them back on their home surface, their bread and butter that they really prefer on the PGA Tour, first off, it gives them that confidence, but second of all, they know they're going to putt better. They just have for their career, and that's the law of averages, right? That's the law of numbers out there. So HV3, I like him on Bermuda, but more than that, the shots gained metrics have been there. The course history has been pretty damn solid too. I mean, outside of last year's performance where he just made the cut, you have a top 10 in 2020, another top 10 in 2017, has not missed the cut over his last 5 years. So, even when he's, not bringing his best stuff to the table, is still going out there and making the cut at the very least. And when we take a look at the recent form, it hasn't been that flashy, kind of like a Tyrrell Hatton, but still, give the guy some respect, right? Making the cut at the Open Championship is pretty solid for an HV3, particularly a top 30 finish. Travelers Championship, a relatively similar track, made the cut there. Did miss the cut at the US Open, but kind of like I mentioned before, you can excuse that. That was a relatively difficult track there at Brookline. But 13th at the RBC Canadian, another relatively similar golf course, right? Top 15 finish. Last time I checked, at $8,700, or what is he, sorry, $9,000. We feel pretty decent about that too. So I like HV3 this week. I think he obviously has a lot of good vibes at this golf course with 2 top 10s, loves Bermuda grass, and the ball striking numbers of late, particularly with the approach play, have been more than enough for me to get behind. And next up, we've got Siwoo Kim. Another week of playing Siwoo Kim. I should have mentioned off the bat, he was another core pick last week that we got to that ended up playing excellently. And frankly, I'm going right back to the well, particularly at another Donald Ross design, but also a golf course that he self-proclaimed loves. It's his favorite golf course on tour. Those words came directly out of his mouth, not mine. And on top of that, coming off of a top 10 finish, or at least wasn't, going into the last round was there in the top 10, kind of faltered there in the last round, wasn't his best, only shot a few under par, but still more than a solid enough week from the big old Siwoo Kim. So I like the form coming in, and really the shots gained metrics back up the eye test, is gaining across all 4 categories, most significantly around the green, which is a little bit concerning. Obviously, we'd rather see that with the approach play, pretty much any other category other than around the green, but at the end of the day, he's still better than most players in the field in every single category, right? So any given week, he can carry himself with any one category. I like getting to that, particularly at a golf course where somebody has a solid history. And for Siwoo Kim, you're not going to find a better history. Last year, finished in second. Year before that, 3rd place. Year before that, 5th place. Missed the cut in 2018, but I don't worry about that. When somebody told me in 2019 it was their favorite golf course and then finished 5th, 3rd, and then 2nd, I tend to believe that type of guy, right? Particularly when the shots gained metrics at this golf course were just through the roof with his shots gained tee to green. So with the shots gained metrics, with the course history, the recent form has been there too, right? Obviously, 2 top 15 finishes in a row at the Open Championship, a few missed cuts before that. I'm willing to put those aside and just consider the upside. And for Siwoo Kim, anybody that's playing him should know this, or at least if you don't know this, I'm going to inform you now. It is an experience. When Siwoo Kim goes out there, if he's dialed in, you'll know early and you're going to be excited there on Thursday. If he starts something like 3 to 4 over par, just prepare for the worst. He's more than liable to eject. You've seen him just completely get disengaged with golf tournaments and just put himself out of it there on Thursday. That is also pretty much just as likely as him going out there and smashing that week. So it is an experience. Understand what you're getting yourself into if you go ahead and decide to play Gsluke Kim. But the upside is more than evident. And pretty much everyone out there, even if you're a Gsluke Kim hater, has to acknowledge that. And lastly, the last guy we're getting to, and I will remind you, if you're looking for access to all of my projections, they are on my Patreon page, as it says here on the screen. It is $10 for the month, and because it's the first of the month, it is the best time to join. You get full use of that throughout the end of the month for that $10. You get access to the modeling, projections, everything that's blacked out on here. Also my prize pick spreadsheets, the prize picks props that I'm taking for every single round, and that's not just round 1, but also rounds 2 through 4. My showdown projections for DraftKings, that's for obviously all of the PGA Tour events. All of that is included with the $10 subscription. So I highly recommend you check it out. But lastly, the last core pick we're getting to is going to be JT Poston, the man who won this event a few years ago at $8,200. And on top of that, guys, he is coming in with scorching hot form, right? I don't really have to remind you at this point. So if we take a look at the recent form, you'll see 11th at the 3M Open. He did miss the cut at the Open, which it's a major championship. I'm willing to give him a pass there because he won there at the John Deere and finished in second at the Travelers. Travelers, a similar golf course. John Deere going to be a birdie fest like we see this week. 3M Open, while it's not a similar golf course, he still finished in 11th place. He still obviously showed an ability to go out there and perform at a track. I, played him out. He was a core pick for us, but I didn't think he was like the best course fit in human history. I thought it was like a decent course fit. When you get him on Bermuda grass, he is by far, his best self. It's his favorite surface there on tour. So the fact that he's already been putting the lights out and now we get him on Bermuda grass makes me even more excited about playing him. But on top of that, right, he's won at this event. Let's take a look at the course history. It has been a little bit volatile for him. A few missed cuts since the win, but he's won here. He made the cut here in 2017. He's shown the upside at this venue before. Why not again? Particularly when he's playing like this. So when we take a look at the recent form metrics, they are eye-popping. First off, gaining across the board with all 4 shots gained categories, but most significantly with the 2 most important categories, his shots gained approach and his shots gained putting, where he's gaining close to 2/3 of a stroke per round in each category. In fact, over 2/3 of a stroke per round with the putter. A lot of that has been on bent grass, which historically isn't his favorite surface. So the fact that we're getting JT Poston now going to the Bermuda grass surface, which historically has just been so kind to him over the years, just makes him a smash play. He's won here before. We know he has that upside, and he's coming in with better form than he's ever come into this event with before, right? If anything, this should be the all-time JT Poston smash slot. And from what I've seen early in the week, people are okay with playing JT Poston, but he's not like a favorite of people this week, right? I expect him to be like moderately owned. Certainly people are going to get there because of the win in the past with the recent form, right? People are going to be completely blind to this play, but I don't think he's going to be like chalk of all chalk. And if that's going to be the case, going to be somebody that I am willing to play in a moderate amount of lineups myself. All right, boys, that is all I've got for this week's core picks. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and smash that like button. And also go ahead and comment down below who you've got winning this week. For me, I'm stuck between a few, but I do think that Tyrrell Hatton, that one weird feeling to have, might go ahead and win this week. If I had to give you a few more options, maybe Billy Ho, perhaps going with somebody like a Gsluke Kim, who absolutely loves this golf course. Hasn't won here before, but damn, a lot of top 5 finishes to boot. So in either circumstance, go ahead and let me know who you're taking in the comments. And as per usual, expect to see even more content throughout the week, whether it's our DFS value picks, our fades and sleepers, the DFS live stream, which will be Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern time. You'll have access to a lot of my data there, but not all of it. Again, if you're looking for access to everything I have to offer, that'll be on my Patreon page. Again, a link is in the description of this video to join there. It is $10 a month. I highly recommend you guys go ahead and do so if you want access to everything I have to offer. I appreciate all the support here, guys. Best of luck with all of your DFS lineups this week. And let's go ahead out there and let's take down the GPP this week. I'm feeling it, guys. Should be a fun time watching these tour players compete for their tour cards. And I'm going to enjoy it. So best of luck, guys, and I'll catch you guys next time.